clearing close in the forest you'll find a fabulous banquet, a fairy ball. If you close your eyes and you open your mind, the veil disappears and you'll see it all.
Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video we are going to be diving into yet another classic fairy tale film that we have all seen since a very young age. Except we are once again going to be diving into the creepy underlying story and some pretty dark and twisted subliminal messages throughout the film. For today, I have chosen to dive into Peter Pan, which was one of my favorite Disney movies as a kid growing up. I did really enjoy watching Peter Pan. I think because Tinkerbell is like one of my favorite Disney characters ever. Like every single year for Halloween I contemplate being Tinkerbell because I don't know, I just love Tinkerbell so much. You guys know I love fairies. But the main reason that I've chosen Peter Pan is because upon doing some research, I stumbled across a particular theory about subliminal messages within Peter Pan and just a really dark underlying story that's really going on. And while there were elements of this particular theory that I have heard before and that are more common, there were definitely some things within this theory that were very, very dark, twisted, creepy, possible, and I'd never heard them before. So without further ado, let's just dive into everything to do with Peter Pan because there's a lot I want to cover in this video. So first and foremost, one thing I really want to say about Peter Pan that super creeped me out, and I want to know if you guys thought the same thing, so definitely drop a comment down below letting me know if you did. But I will never forget when I was a child and I saw the one Peter Pan where all of the mermaids are so evil and like scary looking and they aren't like what you would picture a mermaid to be. That scared me so bad as a kid, you guys. Like that scene was so scary to me, and like for a little while it totally changed my perspective on mermaids. And it was just really creepy. So that's kind of a side note, but let me know in the comments below if you felt the same way too. So before I get into this particular theory that I've done a lot of research into now and I'm going to read to you, I want to talk about kind of some interesting facts behind Peter Pan as a whole and the creator of Peter Pan, so to speak. So James Matthew Barrie was a Scottish novelist and playwright who is most commonly known for being the creator of Peter Pan. Now, something very sad and kind of dark behind the creation of Peter Pan itself is that Peter Pan is actually based on James Matthew Barrie's older brother, David, who actually died in an ice skating accident the day before his 14th birthday. Now, as you guys know, Peter Pan himself, the character that he created, has never been documented throughout all of the different variations and abbreviations and adaptions of Peter Pan. He's never been documented aging over the age of 13. So in the minds of James Matthew Barrie and his mother, his brother David was essentially known to them as a boy who would never grow up, much like Peter Pan. And something that I actually read into that was a little bit not freaky towards me, but a little bit dark as well as far as this backstory goes, is that James's mother never truly got over the death of David, and she would sometimes dress James in David's clothes to like keep him alive in a certain way. So when James went on to create Peter Pan, his brother David was really the inspiration behind the film, hence why he was the boy who would never grow up, and also why he is never documented being over the age of 13, because David had passed away the day before his 14th birthday. And this actually ties into this dark and twisted theory about Peter Pan a little bit later, and I'll tell you guys why, but it makes the theory that much more realistic. Another dark, twisted, scary thing about the creation of Peter Pan is that in James Matthew Barrie's original version of Peter Pan, Peter was always looking for a new victim and was actually kind of a psychotic killer who was always looking for somebody to kill because he was bored. Which mainly consisted of Peter killing pirates, but it definitely was not limited to his own crew. When any of the Lost Boys started to show signs of aging, Peter would dispose of them. So the original version of James's Peter Pan was very dark, and Peter actually wasn't the most compassionate, loving person to everybody. He was always looking for victims to kill when he would get bored. Like literally in this version, sometimes Peter would switch sides and start killing his own just to keep things interesting. So the original thing behind it all wasn't the nicest to begin with. It definitely had a darker underlying story as well. Now the last thing that I want to add in before I get into this particular theory that is just kind of a fun fact about Peter Pan, it's a little bit horrible, but it's kind of interesting, and that is the fact that in the original Peter Pan, Peter didn't need fairy dust to fly, but this led real children in the real world to think that they too would be able to fly without pixie dust or fairy dust. And when enough injuries were actually reported in the later version, he would switch to the fact that Peter would need magic fairy dust in order to fly. That way children wouldn't think that just anybody could jump off into the sky and fly. So now I've actually printed out one of the theories that I found online. I'll have a link to it in the description. I am definitely not taking credit for these exact words. Somebody typed it up. But I found this theory to be so interesting, and when I was reading through the comments on the website that this theory was listed on, a lot of people found this theory to be interesting and probable, and there are numerous things throughout this that I really want to touch on as far as the history of the creation of Peter Pan and where some of these theories may be true. So I'm going to read you this right now. A boy who never grows up, a boy who lives in his paradise. He takes children to his paradise, where they can also live happily and have adventures. No worries, no adults telling them what they can or can't do, fighting pirates all day, every day with your best friends, and the best part is it never ends, because you never grow up. Sounds like heaven, doesn't it? That's because it is. Peter Pan is dead. Now, before I carry on to this person's particular theory as to what happened to Peter Pan, I have read everywhere the fact that Neverland is heaven and that Peter Pan takes dying children into the world of Neverland and helps cross them over, and he is in fact dead. Now, when we kind of look back at the fact that Peter Pan was based around James's brother, David, who never made it to his 14th birthday, and Peter never grows older than 13, I truly believe this theory to be true. I really do think that Peter Pan was dead, but let's continue into this theory. Peter was murdered by James Hook on a cruise ship. Peter fought back as much as he could, but was eventually stabbed and pushed off of the ship, left to drown and bleed out. Peter was taken on the ship for his 13th birthday. The night he was killed, it was the day before his birthday. Him and his parents got into an argument about Peter, since he was going to become a teenager now. They told him that he needed to grow up and be more responsible from now on. Peter had refused. It was more his father that Peter was arguing with. Peter's father was a successful politician, a rich, serious man. This was how the family was able to afford the cruise, and it also plays a part of why Peter was murdered. James Hook was also on the cruise. He was a close friend of Peter's father and a fellow politician. He was invited by Peter's father to join him and his family on the cruise. Hook was a single bachelor, so it was just him that joined them. Hook and Peter's father were both going to start campaigning for state governor in a few weeks. They were going to run against each other. When Hook discussed this with Peter's father, it was a friendly banter between the two. May the better man win. But to Hook, he was taking this much more seriously than Peter's father knew. Peter, after arguing with his father, stormed onto the deck and stared to the sea. Conveniently, James Hook followed him onto the empty deck, a knife in his suit pocket. Hook walked up to Peter and asked what was wrong. Peter, knowing Hook ever since he could remember, spilled his guts. How he hated his dad was so serious, how he wanted to have fun for as long as he could. Peter went on to explain how he vowed he would never be like his dad. Hook pretended to understand. He coyly said how his dad wouldn't be as serious if he wasn't a politician, and maybe something should make his dad get some emotions. Peter agreed and asked Hook what he had in mind. Peter thought that Hook was suggesting they play a prank of some sorts on his dad. That was not what Hook had in mind. Hook had casually thrown out some ideas. Oh, I don't know, maybe smash a pie in his face, replace his socks with bologna, kill his only child. Peter had loved the ideas Hook threw out before the last one. He understood what Hook had in mind with the evil look on Hook's face. Peter tried to run but was pulled back by Hook. Peter struggled for his life, kicked, punched, and even bit Hook. Peter actually escaped from his grasp a few times. The third time he escaped, Hook had enough and stabbed Peter. Then he tossed Then he tossed the in-shock Peter off the body of the ship into the water. Hook cleaned up the mess that Peter had made and returned to the cabin. He changed into nice clothes and walked upstairs to the ballroom. He couldn't help but notice that Peter's parents didn't attend. Throughout the dinner party, he fell out. He felt very uneasy. He kept sweating, even though it was not hot. He kept shaking all over, and he couldn't shake a tick-tock sound in his ear. With each passing minute, it grew louder. He swore he heard Peter's mischievous laugh as he suffered. It grew louder and louder and louder as the days progressed. He kept hearing Peter. The announcements asking where Peter was, the pictures of him that showed up on deck, the rescue time interviewing him. He couldn't take it. James Hook threw himself off the cruise and then drowned. Captain Hook joined Peter in Neverland, where they still fight on the ship, and this time Peter refuses to lose. They will fight on forever. Now, how about the Lost Boys? The boys that Peter plays with. Those are boys that are dying, boys that are trapped in a coma or such. This gives them the name Lost. They are not yet dead, so they can't fly like Peter can, and they can't leave and come back like Peter can. At the end of the first movie, where they go back to their moms, it was because they chose to fight and they left Neverland or come back out of their coma or being brought back to life. This is where Wendy comes in. See, Peter can leave Neverland at any time he wants. Some might call him a ghost. Some might not. You can't pass through Peter, and you could actually touch him. Or maybe that's just an illusion, Peter was losing hold on his Lost Boys. They missed their family, especially their mothers. They wanted to go home, but Peter couldn't allow that. See, Neverland is no fun without anybody to play with. Sure, messing with Hook was fun, but having your pals made it 10 times better. After all, Peter is still a 12/13-year-old boy. He needed friends. So Peter did bring the Lost Boys to Neverland. They aren't dead, none of them are, but some are close to it, and some will still stay alive in the long run. Peter already left Neverland to go listen and then bring back stories to tell the boys. That household was the Darling household. Peter losing his shadow was an accident, but it played out well in the end. He needed Wendy to be the boys' mothers, so they wouldn't dare to leave him or Neverland. But Wendy would have to die, wouldn't she, to stay there forever with them? Guys, this is where this got really, really weird to me. Peter tried to talk her into suicide. Forget them, Wendy. Forget them all. Come with me where you'll never have to worry about grown-up stuff again. Wendy, of course, being the rational darling she is, did not. Peter brought her anyway to show her what could be her new life. In the end, she did not commit suicide, and Peter was forced to bring her back. Peter loses and gains Lost Boys all the time. Surprisingly, none of them have decided to stay there forever. Peter always brings them home. All the other creatures in Neverland, such as mermaids and Indians, people who have died also. The Indians, that should be a no-brainer. The mermaids, extinct. You can't choose to go to Neverland. Peter chooses. They are almost always boys. Occasionally, Peter will bring a lost girl to his paradise, but they never last long. Almost all of them develop a crush on Peter, and they're never interested in fighting pirates anyways. But most of all, they're usually the ones that want to go home the quickest, which don't mind the Lost Boys that much due to the cooties, of course. Don't feel bad if you've never been taken to Neverland or Peter has never visited you. It's probably best he didn't, because after all, Neverland is not the place you think it is. And that's the end of this person's theory. Now here's the thing, the in-between, the whole cruise ship, politician, all of that stuff, I just found to be a really interesting story. I found it to be a really well thought out theory, but there are a couple of things in here that I definitely do think could be underlining subliminal messages. The first one that I think could be an underlining thing is obviously, like I said, the fact that Peter Pan is in fact dead and that he does in fact bring boys to Neverland. Now it's also known that when the boys, or when the Lost Boys would age, Peter would dispose of them. Peter didn't want anybody to grow up. So it is an interesting theory to think that the Lost Boys are children in comas or in near-death experiences or things like that where they are in the astral planes. They can go to Neverland. However, they do miss their families and they do want to go back. I find that theory to be very, very interesting. I also found the theory about Wendy to be really interesting to me as well. The idea that he was trying to convince Wendy to end her life to come to Neverland. That's really dark and twisted, but I did find that to be a pretty interesting theory as well. But it would also make sense that this was all just in another dimension, and that is why there's mermaids, that is why there's fairies, that is why there's all of this. But overall, I think that there's definitely something darker going on with Peter Pan. I think that the creator Peter Pan knows best what the underlining darker storyline and messages, especially because he did really base it on his brother, and that in itself is a very sad and dark underlining beginning for it all. But although a lot of these are just theories, I do find them to be very spooky, and I thought that this was something interesting to share with you guys. What do you guys think of Peter Pan? What do you think the underlining creepy story is? If you believe there is one, please, please, please drop a comment down below and let me know what you guys think of this, because like I always say, there's nothing that I love more than coming on here with open topics like this and really being able to read through your guys' theories and what you think is going on, if you think anything is at all. So please do that, and I'll be replying to as many of you as I can. And that is it for today's video. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed, but you do enjoy my videos, I would really love it if you would click that subscribe button and join the family. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it, because it makes my heart really happy. And I say that all the time, and it might sound like something that I just say now, but I really, really, really do get so happy when you guys give this video a thumbs up and show me that you enjoyed it, because I work hard on these videos, so it means the world to me. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness. And until next time, I love you.